Before Jessi Colter became known as the partner of Waylon Jennings and the soft voice behind songs that touched millions, she was simply Miriam Johnson, a preacher's daughter growing up in Phoenix, Arizona. Her early life was filled with faith, hymns, and a strong sense of discipline that came from being raised in a religious household. From a young age, she showed an incredible gift for music, playing piano in church while her family and community encouraged her talent. But even as she sang gospel songs on Sundays, her heart dreamed of music that went beyond the church walls. She wanted to create songs that could travel the world and touch people she would never meet. Her first big step into the wider music world came when she met guitarist Duane Eddy. Their relationship moved quickly, and they married when she was still very young. Together, they toured, and she was introduced to the rough realities of the music business, long nights, demanding schedules, and the constant pressure to keep performing. That marriage eventually ended, but it taught Jessi valuable lessons about independence and resilience. By the early 1970s, she had taken her own path and recorded the album, I'm Jessi Colter, which caught attention in Nashville. Her soft but emotional voice made her stand out in a city filled with talent. For the first time, it seemed like her dream of making it on her own terms was coming true. Just as her career was rising, another figure walked into her life, someone who would change everything forever. Waylon Jennings, with all his energy, charisma, and chaos, entered her world like a storm. Jessi's relationship with Waylon Jennings was nothing like her first marriage. If her time with Duane Eddy was an introduction to the music industry, her life with Waylon was a full-force immersion into the extremes of love, fame, and struggle. Waylon was already known as a leading figure in the outlaw country movement, a rebellious force in Nashville who refused to play by the industry's strict rules. He was charming, talented, and carried himself with a kind of energy that drew people to him instantly. But behind that charm was a man fighting deep battles. He had an unpredictable temper, a weakness for drugs and alcohol, and a lifestyle that swung wildly between glamorous stages and lonely, dangerous nights. Jessi saw all of this from the very beginning. She knew the man behind the legend, the poet, the dreamer, the wounded soul hidden under the leather and the bravado. Loving Waylon wasn't simple. Their relationship was filled with highs and lows, arguments and reconciliations, long disappearances followed by passionate returns. There were nights Jessi sat alone, wondering if he would ever come back, or if he was gone forever. People outside their marriage often wondered why she stayed, why she chose to endure the chaos. But Jessi herself explained it simply. She believed her love could outlast his demons. In her own words, she stayed not out of fear, but because she thought if she left, he might not survive. Their love was less like a fairy tale and more like a storm, destructive, unpredictable, but impossible to walk away from. It was this storm that defined not only their marriage, but also much of her music. Her songs carried both the tenderness of devotion and the ache of heartbreak, painting a picture of a woman who loved fiercely but also carried a heavy weight. As Waylon's fame grew during the 1970s, Jessi found herself living both in the light and in the shadow. On the one hand, she had her own success with the breakout hit I'm Not Lisa, a song that became an anthem of heartbreak and longing. The track put her name on the map and gave her recognition as a singer in her own right. Fans connected deeply with the lyrics, but for Jessi, the song reflected feelings she was living in real life. The experience of being loved but not fully seen. While the world celebrated her as a star, she often felt invisible in her own marriage. Everywhere they went, Waylon Jennings was the center of attention, the larger-than-life outlaw who dominated the stage and the headlines. No matter how talented, Jessi was too often introduced as Waylon's wife, rather than the artist she had worked so hard to become. Friends and colleagues sometimes noticed cracks in her confident smile, hints of emotional struggles she rarely admitted. 2. Rumors swirled about fights and tense nights. Though Jessi always insisted that Waylon never physically hurt her, still, the emotional strain was real. Fame gave her songs on the radio, jukeboxes, and stages across America, but it also came with a cost. For Jessi, being tied to Waylon meant constantly balancing love with sacrifice, recognition with invisibility, and strength with vulnerability. She carried all of this quietly, allowing her music to say what she often could not. By the late 1970s and early 1980s, Waylon Jennings was living at a dangerous speed. Drugs, especially cocaine, had become more than a bad habit. They were controlling his life. Nights without sleep turned into days of paranoia, with Waylon pacing the floor, muttering about things only he could see. To the public, he was still the tough outlaw, the leather-jacketed country star who seemed unstoppable. But at home, Jessi saw a man who was haunted. His childhood struggles, the deaths of close friends, and the crushing pressure of fame weighed heavily on him. He numbed himself with substances, creating chaos that was louder than his pain. Jessi tried to help, urging him to slow down, to rest, to take care of himself. But often, her pleas were met with anger or silence. In 1981, during a stay at a motel outside Memphis, things reached a breaking point. Jessi described one night when Waylon's words turned so cruel and cutting that it felt like she was looking at a stranger. She wrote later that it was as if the devil himself had spoken through the man she once loved. The pain of that night was so deep that she left without a plan, driving into the night with nothing but heartbreak. When she returned the next morning, Waylon was gone. The only things left were a smashed mirror and a small wooden box on the nightstand. Jessi did not open that box for 30 years, and when she finally did, it changed how she remembered everything. Still, even after that moment, she did not leave him permanently. She explained later that she believed if she walked away, he might die. For Jessi, staying was not only about love, but about survival, his survival. Throughout the 1980s, Jessi's life became a balance between performing on stage and caring for Waylon offstage. While fans saw them as royalty of the outlaw movement, Jessi was secretly tracking his downward spiral. She kept private notes about his missed shows, unexplained absences, and hospital visits that never made the news. At times, she felt like a detective in her own marriage, trying to keep up with his double life. Her notebooks reveal the heartbreak of watching someone you love slowly disappear into addiction. She wrote about moments when Waylon no longer seemed to recognize her, calling her darling in the same way he might greet a fan. And yet, even as she endured these painful experiences, Jessi also found comfort in her music. A mysterious piano arrived at their home one day, with a message carved beneath the lid, to the one who stayed. She never learned who sent it, but it brought her back to her roots, playing gospel songs and lullabies that reconnected her with herself. Music became her safe place, a way to process memories she could not fully speak about. Among those memories was one particularly heavy secret, a letter Waylon once made her burn, a letter tied to something that happened in Tucson. Though she believed it was gone, the memory lingered. It was a reminder that their story was filled not only with love and music, but also with secrets that could never fully be buried. Jessi carried these secrets quietly, even as her career and reputation grew. For her, silence was a kind of protection for Waylon, for herself, and perhaps even for the legacy of outlaw country itself. Throughout the 1980s, Jessi's life became a balance between performing on stage and caring for Waylon offstage. While fans saw them as royalty of the outlaw movement, Jessi was secretly tracking his downward spiral. She kept private notes about his missed shows, unexplained absences, and hospital visits that never made the news. At times, she felt like a detective in her own marriage, trying to keep up with his double life. Her notebooks reveal the heartbreak of watching someone you love slowly disappear into addiction. She wrote about moments when Waylon no longer seemed to recognize her, calling her darling in the same way he might greet a fan. And yet, even as she endured these painful experiences, Jessi also found comfort in her music. A mysterious piano arrived at their home one day, with a message carved beneath the lid, to the one who stayed. She never learned who sent it, but it brought her back to her roots, playing gospel songs and lullabies that reconnected her with herself. Music became her safe place, a way to process memories she could not fully speak about. Among those memories was one particularly heavy secret. A letter Waylon once made her burn. A letter tied to something that happened in Tucson. Though she believed it was gone, the memory lingered. It was a reminder that their story was filled not only with love and music, but also with secrets that could never fully be buried. Jessi carried these secrets quietly, even as her career and reputation grew. For her, silence was a kind of protection for Waylon, for herself, and perhaps even for the legacy of outlaw country itself. Among all the stories Jessi has shared, one continues to stir curiosity. The secret tied to Tucson. Jessi once revealed that Waylon asked her to burn a letter connected to something that happened in that Arizona city, a memory he could not bear to keep. She never explained the full contents of the letter, and to this day, no one knows the exact truth of what it said. But the mystery lingers. Was it about a past love? A betrayal? A mistake that haunted him for years? Jessi has never given details, perhaps out of loyalty, or perhaps because some truths are too heavy to share. What is known is that the memory of Tucson never fully left her. Even after destroying the letter, she admitted that the words stayed in her mind, like a ghost that refused to leave. For Jessi, Tucson symbolized the darker side of their love story, the secrets, the shadows, and the weight of carrying another person's pain. Fans and historians have tried to piece together the puzzle, searching old interviews and stories, but the truth remains hidden. In some ways, that mystery reflects their entire marriage. Jessi and Waylon shared a love so public, yet filled with private struggles no one else could fully understand. Tucson may remain an unsolved chapter, but for Jessi, it was a reminder that some parts of love are not meant for the world. Some are only meant